Hello friends, this is a video for October 2021. At the beginning, I will mention the most important transits and say which zodiac signs will feel them the most. In the continuation of the video, I will talk about the significance of the inner sun. And finally, I will talk about the direct movement of large planets that influence social events from October onwards. New moon is going to happen on the 6th in Libra and full moon on the 20th of October in the Aries sign. From important transits, let's mention that the Sun is going to be in Libra until the 23rd, then will be in Scorpio. Then Mercury is retrograde until the 19th, but it will remain in its shadow until the 4th of November. So from the 19th on, we are more free to buy and sell and to write, to sign some small contracts and these kind of things. But it is better even to do those things, especially if they're important for you, from the 4th of November on, or just pay attention to the details. If you are signing something or buying something, especially if you're buying big things. Then Venus is going to be until the 7th of October in Scorpio, and after that will be in Sagittarius. And Mars will be in Libra almost all month until the 30th of October. Only the last day of October, Mars will be in Scorpio. Then Pluto is direct in Capricorn from the 7th. Saturn is direct in Aquarius from the 11th. And Jupiter is direct in Aquarius from the 18th. So as you see, big planets, 3 of them, are all direct from October on, and we can expect some changes, of course, some movement. Things will develop in a way. Let me mention some of those aspects. As I said at the beginning, I will speak about aspects. And which zodiac sign will feel them the most, which I usually don't do. So Mercury will make square to Pluto, and this is the beginning of the month, and it's a really frightening energy because there are frightening words said on the 1st of October. It's quite an unpleasant day, but nothing new is happening in the world. You know, we live in such a world, things are happening like that. This will mainly affect Libras and Capricorn, especially those of the first and second decade, so be careful not to fight with somebody, especially verbally. And this is unfortunately that aspect that reminds us that we are in the war. You know, and those people who still do not want to believe that this what is happening with us, it's a war against humanity. They always expect that tomorrow will be better, but it will not really be better until some big things happen. And big shifts which we can expect after the 22nd year and on. Then Venus is going to be in Scorpio and makes sextile to Pluto on the 2nd. This is very attractive energy, of course, with the strong sexual desires that appear, strong passions, and some love scenes are possible with this. So those who love it, they can have them. It will mostly affect Libra, Scorpio, and Capricorn people, but potentially, of course, all of us, because everyone has some connection with Venus, Pluto, or those Scorpio energy. Then on the 3rd, Mercury will trine Jupiter, which is quite harmonious energy, and it's very interesting. It is good for learning and finding higher meaning in everyday activities. So you find higher meaning in something that is small, something that is very basic job or thing that you do. And this affects crabs, you know, this is Cancer, then Gemini people, Virgo, Libra, Sagittarius, and Aquarius mainly. On the 8th of October, when the Sun is in Libra, it makes the conjunction to Mars. And this is one of the most expressive days in October. And after that, on the 9th, Mercury will also be in conjunction with Mars. So these are the days for action and for awakening of ideas, regardless of the fact that no one of those planets in its full force. Those days are especially good for Aries and Leo people. On the 13th of October, Venus makes sextile on Saturn. It is quite a good day for lasting agreements, contracts, for establishing some stable relationships. And this especially affects Taurus, Libra, Aquarius, and Capricorn people. And it is really good for lasting agreements, no matter that Mercury is still retrograde. So this is one of those days, even that Mercury is retrograde, it is quite a good day for contracts and especially for establishing new relationship. Then on the 15th, one of the best days of the month is that day, the Sun makes trine to Jupiter. And this trine is happening in the air signs. This is the best and the most important day of the month. And this is something that helps us to clear our mind, to cultivate our ideas, to strengthen consciousness, and it's generally useful for all signs. So around the middle of the month, work on these things, try to gain inner strength and be brave and conscious and maybe learn some new techniques how to do that, how to establish this conscious state of mind, because we all will really need that in the months to come. On the 17th, there is a square between Sun and Pluto, and of course, it's a power struggle. This affects Libra, Capricorn, and Scorpio people mainly. And soon after that, Mars makes square to Pluto. So 17, it's a quite dangerous day when great political struggles can happen. On the 26th, Venus makes square to Neptune, which is potential disappointment, or maybe we can say this is the day of a realistic view of unrealistic expectations. And this affects Sagittarius, Libra, Pisces, Taurus people. And fortunately, many people will make somehow those disappointments if they happen around the 26th, because the compensation comes when Venus makes sextile to Jupiter, which will happen on the 28th of October. And this aspect between Venus and Jupiter is interesting one because it unites our desires and our faith. Or we can say that's what we desire for and that's what we believe in. Those two energies are together. This is very rare because we say that we actually experience in life what we believe in. And this does not have to be in compatible with our desires. Often our desires are something else and we inner believe something different, But these energies are now united around the 28th. And at the end of the month, it is the 30th day. It's a very difficult aspect between Sun and Scorpio. Saturn in Aquarius and between Sun and Saturn. Sun is going to be in Scorpio and Saturn in Aquarius. And this reminds us of the story of the square of Saturn and Uranus, which is the most important aspect of this year and which will grow stronger and be again very, very active in December of 2021. And I will say a few words later on also about this. So after the autumn equinox, when the sun enters the sign of Libra, it is getting darker in the northern hemisphere. And of course, depends where you live, but now I speak mainly for people who are in the northern hemisphere because I live there. And we are preparing for a new 6-month period and preparing for winter. As in the time of spring equinox, Sun and Moon are in the signs of Libra and Aquarius. Just now in October, we have different meaning. So based on the rhythm of the moon, Aries people now complete one 6-month cycle, while Libras begin one new 6-month cycle. And people usually feel this. And then based on solar rhythm, Aries are now on half of the way and a little bit tired We are always tired a little bit 6 months from our birthday, while Libras begin now their new solar cycle. And most probably you know that many people want to do their horoscopes for the solar year. We do these horoscopes on the day of the sun return. This is the day of our birthday. And of course, if you want, you can order with me your solar horoscope. Just I never do only solar horoscope. I always do it together with natal transits and other things. By the way, the sun is in full force in Aries and is declining in Libra. This is why Libra is the sign of cultivating of solar principles. So Libra does not have them naturally and should cultivate them. And as China is the sign of Libra, one can learn a lot about that, how to cultivate inner qualities. You can learn from Chinese people. And how do they do it? They do it by exercising, doing calligraphy, writing poetry, dance, etc. Almost every day, as you most probably know. Chinese every day do something for this cultivation, and not only cultivation of these some qualities, but because they have also another discipline that they call Yangshen, which means to nurture life, and it's also some sort of a daily rituals. And Libra cultivates these abilities through art and through things that are aesthetically appealing. Libra does not cultivate its qualities through hard work and such things. In October, the sun shines less outside, but we find it and cultivate it inside of ourselves. Of course, again, depends on that in which half of this globe you live. I also speak this for Northern Hemisphere, but for all of others, this also applies when they have autumn. So in the introspective period of the year, when it begins, it is necessarily to encourage our inner sun to shine in order to maintain vitality, and we do that with diet, with exercises, with new daily rhythm, and with various spiritual techniques. So let us remind ourselves that the sun is a symbol of the self with big S in Jungian psychology. And this means actually the whole. The symbol of it is the circle with the dot in it. So our soul strives to become the whole, and the meaning of our existence is to discover that whole, if you want, which means that no one aspect of our soul should remain suppressed, whether we like it or not. So almost all spiritual sciences or techniques, you can call it as you want, or spiritual arts, deal with that, how to consciously integrate the unconscious aspects of the soul. Or we can say it differently, how to integrate all of the aspects of one's soul. We can also say it like that. That is also the meaning of the enlightenment. Because man is enlightened when he knows everything about himself, when he illuminated with the light of consciousness everything that he is, so nothing remains in the darkness. Darkness means not knowing or ignorance. So basically, man who knows everything about himself, and he accepts everything that he is enlightened. I have some seminars about those topics, but unfortunately not in English. Most probably if you follow my channel, you know that I do not offer many things in English. In other languages I do, and perhaps one day I will translate all of that, but for now I can't do it. So for now we'll only speak about that. So it is often forgotten that the sun heals. The sun heals physically and spiritually, so it heals physical and spiritual diseases. And that we can say because the sun is actually the symbol of consciousness. So actually consciousness heals, if you want. I talked about that in some of my videos previously. Now I'm repeating myself a little bit, but it is really necessary to repeat this in this hour time. So more specifically, the sun that shines outside every day also can heal us, and that's why people who solarize themselves at the sun, they don't have to eat, and they're very, very in a good health. But also we can say the same about the consciousness of a man, because the symbol of our consciousness is our inner sun in astrology also, and it is in the area of the fourth chakra. So if we are sick, for example, we need to ask ourselves, how do we heal? That's what I want to explain. If we want to heal by the power of consciousness, then we need to ask ourselves, when this disease started with us, what this disease symbolizes, what feelings are connected with this disease, did we ever experience the same disease before, and so on. There is a certain order how we can consciously study the disease, for example, that we have. And this is what Thetahealing does. Thetahealing is the method that I use, that I do. That's why I recommend to everyone. But of course, there are many spiritual methods of healing that you can use, and they're all in a way similar. But what we see today something completely opposite. So mainly governments in most of the countries in the world, they don't speak of health. And if they would speak of health, they would not scare people, But that's what they do. They scare people. But what they should do, they would strengthen our body. They will help us to strengthen our body and our spirit. And they would encourage us to become enlightened individuals. And they would encourage us to be on the path of self-learning. Because, people who who know the life and humans, they know that this is the most important things that heals everything. But we see that in all of the medias, they present fear and they consciously make people to be afraid. It's completely different from that what should be done. In ancient mythology, Apollo was the sun, the god sun. And Apollo has many qualities that many other solar deities have in different religions and mythologies of the world. So he's the one who sees everything. His arrows always hit the target, and that's why he can predict the future. He's the one who is noble, unique, and he's the one who heals. So actually he returns something that is sick or ill into a normal, healthy state. We said in many of previous videos, especially in my video for September 2021, we said which disease is here now all this about. So we know that as a collective, we are experiencing some sort of collective hysteria. It is the disease that rules now here. And this disease is actually implemented to us. It is the part of the war that they lead against humanity. It is led by neo-fascists, I'm sorry to say. Those degenerative representatives of the failed civilization. So we have this disease as a collective, and we need to learn how to heal it in a proper way. To do that, not only that we can do this inner work, there is something that we can apply from outside. Let me remind you that many plants, especially those who are yellow, symbolize the sun, or to say consciousness. So I found that in English you say St. John wort. This is one of those herbs that is very useful to drink as a tea. Then there is a herb with the name Immortale, small yellow flowers it has. Then dandelion, then sunflower, chrysanthemums, and many others. Teas made from this flower or from those herbs, if you want, strengthen the liver, blood, and heart, and can serve to awaken inner light, or as Chinese would say, they strengthen yang. yang, yin-yang, from yin-yang, this yang, this is this male principle inside of us. So I recommend to you to study how to use those herbs. You will find many informations about that in the internet, and you can consume one part of those herbs in a certain part of the year to awaken this inner light. It is also important, especially from October until April, to do sun salutation, which they call the essence of yoga, and maybe 5 Tibetans that are very similar to sun salutation, because those exercises or those rituals, if you want, also stimulate this inner sun to shine. And photos or pictures of those exercises are also on my web pages. My web pages are symbolicthinking.net. You will find them there, and of course in some other places. So why have I talked so much about the sun and this archetype that the sun represents? Because of the direct planets in Aquarius. We said that Saturn and Jupiter together, both planets together, are direct again in Aquarius. So we return now, let's hope new and wise, to where we left off. And we did that in May and in June. Saturn was retrograde from May and Jupiter from June. So from May or June until October, we had to integrate something that happened to us as a collective. We were lockdowns and all of those things that we were experiencing. And now we are going into deep into those energies again. It's a new phase, and hopefully we learned something. So maybe you will see the pattern that is similar to that happened in the year 2020. So they left us to have a break in the summer. And since the fall on, they're most probably preparing new restrictions and some new evils, because those neo-fascists, sorry to say, are not giving up. It seems that they're very vital, and we see that their ideas are still very alive, and that they are alive for more than 70 years, and most probably all of those ideas are older than that, than the Second World War. So just as each Aquarius learns to accept himself as a whole, as he is, so we now, through the dominant archetype of Aquarius, learn to be what we really are, to preserve our individual needs, and to oppose to hysteria of masses, and to oppose this darkness and fear of masses. Many are in this darkness and they are afraid and they're unconscious and irrational and so on, but we should not be angry on anybody. We are just learning about this. If you want to learn something more about that, what is happening with these planets in Aquarius, please see my older videos. They're on YouTube, and they have the name Astro-psychology, Leo, Myth and Personality, or Astro-psychology, Aquarius, Myth and Personality. That's what I have for every zodiac sign, but now I remind you that you can see those videos for Leo and Aquarius to learn about that, what Aquarius has to integrate and what Leo has to integrate. And after that, you may wish to watch my video, Technocracy, Opposite of Love. And then when you see all of those videos, you will maybe better understand, if you still did not understand, why it is Aquarius opposition to Leo, or why we here speak about love. Why is love now so important when technocrats are progressing and implementing something into this world? So you will see there that whenever we talk about Aquarius and Leo, we are talking about masses or collective and individual. We are talking about subordinating oneself to collective needs and expressing personal authenticity, which are opposite things. Next, we are talking about giving and receiving, especially about giving and receiving love. So we have been living for a long time in the societies which often suppress individual human needs. They were somehow undesirable, for example, in some communist countries, and in many countries in the West, especially in America, where corporations are ruling in the society. Corporations have a whole system of functioning designed to suppress individuality and creativity of individuals. And that is nothing compared to that what we experience now with that so-called COVID terror. So now we learned about the relationship of the individual and the collective, while planets are in Aquarius. And we learned that sometimes it is necessary to submit to the needs of the collective, and sometimes that is harmful. Sometimes it is necessary to dissolve our individual needs for the sake of the collective, and sometimes it is dangerous and devastating. And these are the topics we solve now, each from his own point of view. As you know, people are now divided in two groups, and each of them understand this topic of collective and the individuals in a different way. And it is your now thing to accept, to find your position. And of course, we will from the time to time change this position now with those planets in Aquarius until 2023 especially. So we can talk about what Saturn and Jupiter in Aquarius means in many videos. I'm not going to repeat that now, but let me tell you that, of course, Aquarius symbolizes the collective. And further, Aquarius and those planets in Aquarius symbolize freedom and restrictions of the collective. Jupiter is freedom, Saturn is the restriction. Pardon. Then we speak here about conscious and unconscious part of the collective, equality and elitism, and so on. So the question is, can we expect from October on more restrictions on the level of collective? Are there going to be new pressures and new conditions of living on this earth? Most probably yes, because those planets are again direct, they're together direct from October, so things are going to happen. If you remember, in my May video, May 2021, I talk about Saturn being retrograde in Aquarius, and I remind you that the same cycle is repeating as in the year 1992. And I chose as the basic events from 1992, 3 of them: the end of Cold War, border changes in Slavic countries, and apartheid. So we really now experience similar things. However, as Saturn is going to be retrograde again in the year 2022, we are going to experience that in the year 22 also, things that were happening in 1992. No? So actually the year 2021 and 22 are going together. The topics are repeating. So, for example, the meeting of two presidents of America and Russia in June of 2021 belongs to this symbolism. This meeting was described by media in their programmed way, so we actually don't know anything what was happening there. But I think that they spoke about the new division of the world, and actually that took place already. I don't know when people will hear about that and what will really happen. And actually there is going to be some revision in the year 22 because of this second return of Saturn retrograde in Aquarius. Let me remind you that we had Saturn retrograde in Aquarius also in the year 1963. And in that year they killed John Kennedy, and the USA policy completely changed, and of course the world politics changed, and actually those corporations started to build these structures that we are experiencing now, and we are hopefully experiencing the end of them after the assassination of John Kennedy. Furthermore, the topic of apartheid was the biggest topic of summer of 2021, and we said in May video that is going to be. And I hope that you know that there are huge protests in France and other countries against sanitary passes, as they call them today, which is actually Auschwitz that Nazi Germans had. I'm sorry that I'm saying Nazi Germans, but what can I say? I know that there are many German people now who are fantastic. But in Nazi Germany, they use Auschwitz, which was some sort of permission where people can go or whether they can enter some place or not. So we have that again now. And you know that in many countries, people cannot go to restaurants or to buy things if they don't have this paper that is proving that they had that vaccination. And will this continue in the fall of this year? Most probably, yes. I think it is going to happen in many countries, especially in European Union countries. But what is crucial in this? The key thing is here how much we are aware of that what is really happening in the world. It seems that many people have regained consciousness and gain new self-confidence. And that is why there are so many fights in the streets and there are so many protests. And you most probably know that in Australia, there are really big fights even. And that's what is dangerous about this, what we are experiencing, because this can actually turn into some sort of a street terror, which is really not beneficial to us ordinary people, but of course maybe can be beneficial to someone else, and we should be careful of this. But let's go back for a while to the story of the sun and the power of consciousness. A conscious person has no fears because he knows the origin of his fears and he accepts them. So although we have been brought into humiliating position, and we were blackmailed as humanity, it is crucial to know what is happening and to prepare this inner resistance. We don't have to do anything outside, especially not for now. There is nothing to do. We can't fight them. So I mentioned that the month ends with the square of Sun and Saturn, and those two planets are in Scorpio and Aquarius, and they remind us of the square between Saturn and Uranus as the main transit in 2021. And let me remind you that this is the aspect of anarchy. Only this time the anarchy is not implemented by people, but by the governments. Government structures in most of the countries of the world are bandits, I can say that freely, which often reveals, by the way, of speaking and behaving, even if they are trying to hide this, that they are bandits. So governments and politicians carry out illegal actions. They pass non-constitutional decisions and laws, and they suppress basic human freedoms. This is what is happening with those planets in Aquarius and Pluto in Capricorn. So how do we survive? By awakening and nurturing our authenticity, by resisting mass hysteria and media indoctrination. And that is enough for now. Nothing else we should do, basically. So for the first 7 days in October, Venus, the ruler of Libra, is in Scorpio. Thus it is in its exile. So our value is very low at the first 7 days, but of course that encourages us to change. This Venus is described in many myths, mythical stories, and it is usually about the about the woman going into the underworld, where she regenerates and begins to live with a new consciousness. I don't have time now to speak about those myths, but these are mythical stories of Persephone and Psyche, for example. So it is possible that at the first week of October, many of us will experience some sort of transformation of this type, the value of oneself. It's a very important topic now. Mars is in October in weak position, except for those days that I mentioned already, the 8th and the 9th. So let's hope that there are not going to be some major big conflicts in the world. And again, the direct Pluto on the 24th degree of Capricorn affects Capricorns in the last decade, also cardinal signs of the last decade. And this Pluto asks for total transformation without hesitation. If you belong to these cardinal signs, which are also except Capricorn, Libra, Aries, and Crabs, and you went through the most important changes already, it was enough maybe for you, you said, oh, I don't want to wish anymore. Well, most probably you finished this process. These are now mainly for people who have planets for 23rd, 24th degree of cardinal signs until the 30th degree. Needless to say that the same goes for politics and government structures in the world. Old rulers, old slaveholders still do not want to give up. And we will see in the coming months until April, when Pluto will be retrograde again in Capricorn, what did they prepare for us? So let's be ready. Let's be ready for a new portion of plutocracy. And about the plutocracy as the permanent form of government in this our world, I talk in the video with the same name. So if you haven't seen it, please check my video. The name that it has is Plutocracy. With direct Jupiter and Saturn in Aquarius, we all continue the process of growth, we as in individuals, in a certain area of our life that is symbolized in our horoscopes by Aquarius. So if you know your horoscope, then you know that Aquarius symbolizes certain astrological house, and it influences certain area of life. So you have matured in that certain area, you grow in a new way, you have accepted some lessons and limitations, you have also accepted gifts that wisdom brings. And you are going into another phase next few months. For some of us, this is the area of family or children or money or health and so on. Remember, regardless of the limitations of Saturn, Jupiter, that is in Aquarius, is the planet of optimism, and it selflessly gives to those who know how to discover the true meaning in everything. So you see, message from October on is either they or us. And everybody has to decide for himself in October of 2001 which perception he will have. So that's all for October video. Feel free to schedule personal consultations with me. You will see on my web pages, symbolicthinking.net, that I offer consultancy based on astrology, mainly astrological psychology and spiritual astrology, that I also offer Thetahealing, Feng shui, and also some audio recordings. Most of those contacts you will find, or links you will find under this video on YouTube. If you like the video, forward it, subscribe to my channel, like the video. Thank you very, very much for that in advance. And until next time, I wish you to cultivate your inner sun and your authentic need.